explain for us, you mentioned so there's the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. So NIST is the National Institutes of Science and Technology. That may be familiar as an acronym. The NIST thing is something that, for those of us who have done any deep learning, the kind of hello world deep learning example involves this handwritten data set of digits. So it's 60,000 handwritten digits done by, if I remember correctly, US postal workers as well as elementary school students. And so it's these just each image is a different digit. So it's, some of them are zeros, some are ones, some are twos, some are threes, all the way up to nine. And this handwritten data set was curated initially, I guess, in the 90s, maybe even in the 80s, by NIST. And then Yann LeCun, who's one of the most famous AI researchers of all time, he modified with his research team at the time. I believe they were at AT&T Bell Labs. They modified that NIST handwritten digit data set to create the MNIST, modified NIST handwritten data set. So that's, I don't know, it's a bit of an aside, but that MNIST data set is probably familiar to anyone who's done any kind of deep learning at all. And so, yeah, so that same organization, NIST, has been around for a long time in the US. I don't know how many decades, but has been trying to set up frameworks for all different kinds of industries in science and technology, and has now created this AI risk management framework, which, again, I'll have a link to that in the show notes alongside the AI Bill of Rights. A third framework, I guess, you can correct me if I'm not using the right word there, that you brought up in your talk that also seems really helpful here is something called the MITRE Atlas. So uh, I've been trying to, as you've been speaking, kind of dig up what MITRE stands for, MITRE. It doesn't seem like it stands for anything. Can you tell us a bit about MITRE and the MITRE Atlas, and then maybe you can weave together these three different things: the AI Bill of Rights, the NIST AI Regulatory Framework, as well as MITRE Atlas, and tell us how we can integrate these three frameworks together in order to have a good sense of how to move forward with the AI systems that we build.
So MITRE is a not-for-profit organization. I worked for them for 10 years, and they support the federal government across all the federal government agencies to help them solve some of their most pressing challenges. So MITRE operates federally funded research and development centers in support of the federal government to, to solve problems for a safer world. Essentially, is what MITRE does. And while at MITRE, I supported multiple agencies: Department of Homeland Security, Social Security Administration, Veterans Affairs, Department of Defense, in some of the challenges that they were facing at the time, societal challenges to include, when the economy was doing some downward slides and banks were failing. Part of some of the work that I did was at the FDIC. That was with Booz Allen, but MITRE was involved in other aspects of that as well, to really understand the failures and to figure out the mitigation strategies to ensure that society didn't feel those impacts as broadly and as strongly. MITRE created the Atlas threat model threat model. It's this comprehensive coverage of AI-specific adversary tactics and techniques that includes real-world observation and reporting. It talks about accessibility and usability of AI, alignment with existing cybersecurity frameworks in terms of from an AI perspective, and that community engagement contribution and the educational resources and training. So they're developing a detailed taxonomy of tactics, of techniques, of procedures specific to AI systems that cover the entire life cycle, from data collection to model development and deployment and maintenance, where they establish those mechanisms for continuously gathering and updating threat intelligence based on real-world cybersecurity incidents involving AI, so that the knowledge base remains current and relevant. So that's kind of what MITRE is doing it with their MITRE Atlas framework. And the framework integrates their existing MITRE attack for enterprise framework that shows that they bring in that consistency and an interoperability across cybersecurity efforts as it pertains to AI systems. And that's MITRE Atlas threat model.